The footage was 53 seconds long. The husky pressed his face against the baby's face 3 times. On the 3rd time, he sat back and looked at the camera. That part, the looking at the camera, was the part neither of them could explain. They thought he was smothering the baby. They almost called animal control. They were wrong about all of it. Patrick and Neve Solis had a Siberian husky named Frost, who was 2 years old when their daughter Cleo was born. Frost had been around the baby with the combination of curiosity and restraint that Neve had been warned to watch for in the first weeks. He was not aggressive. He was interested. He would lie near the bassinet in the early weeks and track movement the way dogs track movement. Then the baseline settled and he went back to his normal patterns. Which was why the footage from the living room security camera, which they reviewed on a Thursday morning out of mild domestic habit, not because anything had happened, stopped them both mid-sip of coffee. The timestamp read 2:07 a.m. In the footage, Frost crossed from the hallway into the living room, where Cleo slept in a co-sleeper bassinet that they had moved there after the 2nd week to be closer to the back door during night feeds. Frost approached the bassinet. He pressed his face over the side and put his nose directly against Cleo's face. Cleo was 9 weeks old and asleep. She stirred slightly but did not wake. Frost held his nose there for 4 seconds. He lifted his head. He walked around the bassinet to the other side. He pressed his nose to her face again from the right. Another 3 seconds. He lifted his head. He looked at the camera. He walked back to the hallway and did not return. The footage was 53 seconds from entry to exit. Patrick watched it twice. Neve watched it twice. Neither of them said anything for a moment. Then Patrick said, "That looks like..." And Neve said, "I know. They called their veterinarian that morning. She said she wanted to see the footage. They sent it. She called back in 40 minutes and said, I do not think this dog is displaying predatory or dangerous behavior. But I want you to take Cleo to your pediatrician today and tell him what you saw. Tell him the dog was monitoring her breathing at 2 a.m. If you stay for stories about what animals sense before we do, you are in the right place. Subscribe so you don't miss the next one." Their pediatrician, Dr. Angela Otieno, had been in practice for 17 years. She listened to Neve describe the footage. She watched the 30-second clip on Neve's phone. She put the phone down and said, "How long has Cleo been congested?" Cleo had had mild congestion for 8 days. They had attributed it to the dry air. It was November. They had a humidifier running. The congestion was not dramatic. It had not changed how she ate or slept, not noticeably. Dr. Otieno examined Cleo's nasal passages and chest. She sent them across the building to the respiratory clinic for a quick assessment. The technician there placed a pulse oximeter on Cleo's finger and recorded her oxygen saturation over 15 minutes. The number fluctuated. During resting, it was normal. During the brief episode of deep sleep she entered in the examination room, it dropped 2 points. The drop was brief. It self-corrected. But it was there. The diagnosis was mild intermittent airway obstruction from nasal congestion and developing RSV. Not severe, not requiring hospitalization, but real. Cleo's oxygen saturation was dropping slightly during her deepest sleep periods, when her muscles relaxed and her congested nasal passages narrowed further, not to a dangerous level, but to a level that changed the chemistry of her exhaled breath. Has your dog ever done something that made no sense until it was the only thing that made sense? Tell us in the comments. These stories deserve to be heard. At a low oxygen saturation, the body produces a higher concentration of carbon dioxide in exhaled air, and a corresponding shift in certain volatile breath compounds. The change is not dramatic. It is not perceptible to a human nose. It is perceptible to a dog who has developed a scent baseline for the person exhaling. Frost had been monitoring Cleo since she arrived home. He knew what her breath was supposed to smell like. At 2:07 a.m. on a Thursday, it smelled different. He pressed his face to hers 3 times, not randomly, from each side to get 2 separate breath samples, one nostril dominant than the other. He looked at the camera, which is to say, he looked at the place where the humans in this house were most likely to be paying attention. Then he went back to the hallway and waited. Dr. Otieno referred them to a pediatric sleep specialist for follow-up monitoring during RSV recovery. She also said something at the end of the appointment that Neve wrote down in the notes section of her phone. She said, "Your dog performed a welfare check at 2 a.m. on a child whose oxygen levels were changing. He checked them twice to be sure, flagged it as clearly as he could, and returned to his post. I have been a pediatrician for 17 years. This is not the first story like this I've heard. It is the most specific. Every guardian deserves to be recognized, even the ones who check from both sides to be sure. If these stories matter to you, subscribe so you never miss the next one." Cleo recovered from the RSV completely. She is now 6 months old and has started reaching for Frost's ears, which he permits with the patience of someone who has earned a level of trust that precedes any of this. He still crosses to her in the night sometimes. He presses his nose near her face for 2 or 3 seconds, and then goes back to wherever he was. Patrick and Neve no longer find this alarming. They understand what he is doing now. He is reading a number. The number has been normal every time he has checked since November. He will keep checking anyway. The next story begins on a Tuesday morning when a family's dog started doing something the trainer said was impossible for an untrained animal, and what the neurologist said 3 weeks later about the brain scan results.